So I don't see her. And I don't know, Diane, if we want to move on. I don't really want to give the introduction for her.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to, I've sent it to her too. I'm trying to send to more folks, so.
Okay, all right.
I apologize. Maybe what we could do is just talk about how we enjoyed the chapters.
Right, that's a good idea. Let's just talk about what spoke to you in these chapters about Mir and Teilhard. Anybody want to start?
Can you hear me? I don't think I have the right Zoom connection. I don't see the screen of everybody tonight. Is there?
Well, we can see you, so that's a good thing.
Anyway, I was surprised at his lack of insight into the Native American and the community around Yosemite where he was. And there was an interesting letter from the head of the Sierra Club that he was a founder of, explaining some of that relationship and how the Sierra Club has had to reevaluate Muir's philosophy today. It's very interesting.
Yeah, he seemed to have evolved over time. I was personally surprised he was even considered a Celtic. I didn't know that about him. Anybody else want to talk about it?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing was true of Audubon. And the Audubon Society is going through a reevaluation because it's discovered not only was he half Black, but he had slaves. And so how do you deal with that if you're going to idolize this man that taught us all about birds? So I think what would, and you see the same thing when you had the people tearing down statues of Southern generals, but maintaining statues of Northern generals like Washington and Jefferson, or presidents, if you will, that had slaves. So what we're dealing with is people that lived in a different time than we did. We do, and a different sensitivity than we do. And you can't, I don't think you can retroactively impose judgment.
Thank you for that. I think that's true. We have a
So
complicated history.
That is what we do all the time, is we judge the past.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we judge the past by our standards today, instead of looking at what it was in the past, what was happening in society in the past, and seeing the good that came out of it, and then tempering the things that we don't agree with by going, yes, we acknowledge that they happened, but we can't totally put them out of sight, out of mind, because then they're going to happen again. We have to have some acknowledgement of the things done in the past. I enjoyed reading about Muir. I always knew he was a Celt. He was Scotland, and that's, I knew he was Celtic background. I did not know he had such a harsh Christian upbringing. But if you'll notice, my background is the Muir Woods. So I have several.
I love that.
They are the most beautiful place, and they have such beautiful walking paths and stuff. It's really, really designed for people to come and enjoy them, because you don't get off into the woods where you can damage them, but they've got paths that you can walk around and enjoy every bit of it. And that's so you can really feel it without damaging the undergrowth and stuff, which is really nice. It's one of my daughter's favorite places was Muir Woods, and she made sure I went there when I went up for her graduation. But I enjoyed reading about both of these gentlemen that we read about this week, because they disregarded what their superiors were telling them, saying, no, God is in everything. It's not, they were acknowledging the truth of God, which is something the Celtic faith has always had, and something our original faith, the first couple of centuries had, was this acknowledgement that everything is all in one, it's all sacred, it's all God. And we've kind of lost that over the centuries.
Yeah, I was impressed with Teilhard and his like active disobedience to the church by giving away his writings to somebody he knew would publish them after he died. Was really flaunting authority. I was impressed by that.
Truth cannot be suppressed. Try as hard as they might, it cannot be.
That's in the book.
I think that was also a way when I saw that as when he did that, is it was a way of protecting, his own treasures and honoring how he probably would have want them to be shared. I saw that, in that light.
I think Joan has her hand up.
Joan.
Yeah, thanks. I was just going to say that I agreed with Susan and Sydney on recognizing that, Muir, for example, was really a really important figure in, I think, teaching us to love and preserve the wilderness, despite some of his shortcomings in other areas. And I did a little reading and I discovered that Teilhard also has a darker side and apparently was a proponent of eugenics and there exhibited some racism in his writing. And at a time, even after the Nazi atrocities were known. And I don't know for sure. I mean, I've seen the quotes and I don't really know for sure what to make of it, but I still don't think that's a reason to discount his really valuable contributions. So, and I think it makes a teachable moment for us, where if we can put that out there and say, look, I mean, he was probably in part a product of his time, because, he grew up in the early 20th century, late 19th, early 20th. So, but it's still, it's a concern. And I think it needs to be tempered. I mean, his philosophy has certainly been more embraced by the Roman Catholic Church now, without maybe that admission of his flaws.
So while we're waiting, I'll ask another question, which I'm going out on a limb, and particularly with people like Richard, who's a ordained priest. How do we going forward? How do we going forward integrate Celtic Christianity with our more traditional Anglican worship and theology? Anybody have an idea?
How do we integrate it? Well, I think the liturgy itself is a Celtic-like experience. That you are drawn into the center of God and all that God has provided for us, and all that is. It's all celebrated in the liturgy. So I think we're
Eucharistic prayer C in particular.
dear old C, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, that one is totally, stunningly, gorgeously beautiful.
Fragile earth, this island home. Yeah.
Yes, I agree with that.
And Nancy is joining us now.
Oh, great.
Very good.
And some of the New Zealand prayer book.
Oh, indeed.
Oh,
You're
yes,
right
indeed.
about that.
Yeah,
They take
I
it a
love
step further.
yeah.
Larry,
I
Oh,
would say,
well, I'm sorry, Sydney has had her hand up for a little while, and then Larry,
Oh, I'm
then
sorry.
Nancy,
I
please.
apologize. Sydney's hand is like in the middle of her tree and I
I
didn't
see it. Yeah,
see it.
that's
Can I make it go like this?
there we go.
Mary, we'll
If-
get
if
to you.
If you study about the Celtic early church, first of all, Rome never got to Ireland, as we learned when we read about St. Brigitte. And that, so they kind of held on to what they were originally taught when the first apostles or disciples came across and taught them. And they were still honoring the land and all of that. And they incorporated their Celtic lifestyle, which was giving honor to the earth and praising it and thanking it for giving back to them. They saw in it the jointness between the Christians' one God and their way of belief. And they joined them together, which melded so beautifully that it had to be of the same essence. And if we go back to those first couple of centuries before the Roman church, because that was the church that started everything, at least in the West, pushed over into Ireland and took over. And they kind of kept it alive in its purest form. I have a book that has the daily prayers for the Celtic people after they became Christians. And you can just see how it grows with them, is how it's just a daily thing that they thank God for this and God for that and for giving them this and thanking him for that and thanking him for that. And yeah, they were saying her or she or mother or whatever, but God is all of that to us. So it's a way of looking at how our faith was in the very infancy of it, before all the power brokers and
Okay, thank you. Let's let
Yeah,
Larry
take
talk
care
so
of
then we can turn it back over to Nancy and start our official evening.
Yeah, and if I might ask, Larry, if you'd make it sort of brief, because, and it's all my fault, I know, but if because we really want to hear from Nancy too. So thank you.
well, I think the question was, how do we get in touch with the Celtic world today? And our experience is get your hands dirty with mission trips.
Thank you. That was good and very succinct. So Nancy, we already introduced you before you were even on. So I hope you're ready to just jump right in.
So what I wanted to do this evening was to have a different kind of experience of the impact of these two visionaries. I saw in them, as I reviewed the chapters and reflected on what I already knew about these people, I saw in them commonalities and similarities. And I saw those work together in a way to expand our understanding of the messages that they were trying to offer. And I don't want to take time to go into some of those details. I can send some notes out later to kind of fill in some of those gaps, since the time is passing. But what I have prepared for you this evening is a series of slides. They're images with some quotes that I will make. What I would like for you to do is to, if you took my suggestion and gathered some colored pencils and some paper or something else that you might want to work with today, then I invite you to have those ready. What I'm going to do is show you a series of images, and each one will be timed. So I'll put the image up and I'll share a quote that is inspired by that image, or the image is inspired by the quote, and give you a few moments of silence to see what comes up for you. And then we will pull those together into their essence toward the end. So let me share my screen with you. Let's see where this, get the screen sharing going. Okay, here we are. Okay. So what we know is that Muir's vision was often earthy, and Teilhard's vision was rather cosmic. It's made Teilhard a little more difficult to understand for some folks, but it's part of what makes his visionary insights so exciting. Muir himself was an interesting character. He went from pacifist to sage, but the center picture is the one that I think ties these two men together. This is him hiking up to the summit of Mount Rainier. In contrast, here in this center picture is Teilhard on the steps in China. They both were wanderers, somewhat in exile, immigrants. These are some of the qualities that connected them, that gave rise to some of their responses to the natural world as they experienced it. Muir said, all terrestrial things are essentially celestial. That is, everything earthly is of heaven. All matter is essentially spirit. Can you see the screen sharing?
Yes.
Okay, good. It just occurred to me, I hadn't checked with you and I wanted to be sure that you were seeing it. All terrestrial things are essentially celestial. That is, everything earthly is of heaven. All matter is essentially spirit. The earth is a divine incarnation. At the heart of matter is the heart of God. Yellow gold, the last of day, not gilding, but golding, to flame the tops of the tree. Spiritual fire burning in every tree, in every bush, in every stone. Every bush is a burning bush. The great mystery of Christianity is not the appearance of God in the universe. It is the transparency of God in the universe. What bright, seething white fire enthusiasm is bred in us. We are part of nature, which like a fluid seems to drench and steep us throughout, as the whole sky and the rocks and flowers are drenched with God. Matter, you in whom I find both seduction and strength. You who can enrich and destroy. I surrender myself to your mighty layers with faith. Let your attractions lead me forward. Let your sap be the food that nourishes me. Let your robberies and inroads, including even the inroad of death at the end, give me freedom. Let your whole being lead me toward God. This was my method of study. I drifted about from rock to rock, from stream to stream, from grove to grove. When I discovered a new plant, I sat down beside it for a minute or a day to make its acquaintance and try to hear what it had to say. I asked the boulders I met whence they came from and whither they were going. The core of every living creature is its power to love. These brown weeds and grasses that we say are dying in autumn frosts are in a gushing, glowing current of life. They too are Godful. Even Earth's geological formations are heaven incarnate. The rocks can be called installations of God. The world was on fire for Teilhard, ablaze. It was like a burning bush, lit from within by something that shone at the heart of matter. All we have to do is let the very heart of the earth beat within us. Earth has no sorrows that earth cannot heal. Let us leave the surface and without leaving the world, plunge into God. Let's sit for just another minute with the memory of these images in our mind's eye. As we move into breakout rooms, we have a couple of questions that you can use if you like to guide your conversation, pulling together your reading and the images and what you discussed before I came to be with you. What inspired the life journeys of John Muir and Teilhard de Chardin? And how were these inspirations similar and different?
And they are also in the chat.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you so much. So I will end the screen share at this moment as Diane moves us into our breakout rooms. Thank you.
That was really lovely. And I'm hoping everybody is glad they stayed. Okay, you're all going to breakout rooms. Thank you. And I'll see, actually, these are going to be 10 minutes today, just because we want to hear everything Nancy has to share for us. So thanks.
So all right, there we are. Okay, so I'm back. So this evening, instead of sharing from our discussions right now, I would like to invite you to bring your thoughts and feelings and the expressions that you may have made during the visual time, bring those into some kind of expression of essence. And I suggest that that might be one or two words that describe the impact that Muir and Teilhard have on you in this moment as you are remembering not only the images, but what you read and the conversation you just had. Let's take just a minute of silence to find your word of essence. And if you think you might forget it, jot it down because you'll use it again in a minute. So let's just take a minute there for that. So hold that. Diane, did I understand that I can move on into the closing meditation at this time?
Sure. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So in 1923, Teilhard traveled to China, where he met and worked with a fellow Jesuit scientist. Soon he journeyed into the Ordos Desert, west of Peking, near Inner Mongolia. This was a very arduous trip, but this journey gave rise to one of his most endearing gifts, his Mass on the World. It is considered a mystical masterpiece. Out in this wilderness, Teilhard had no chalice, no bread and wine, no table, no fair linens, no embroidered adornments, and no parish, no people, no community of believers with whom to worship, with whom to remember, with whom to celebrate. And in this poverty, the mystical words and images poured forth. Here this evening, we will share the opening lines of his Mass on the World as our closing meditation. Therese Carmona has volunteered to read with me, and at the end of it, you will be invited to give voice to your word of essence. When we get to that moment, simply unmute yourself, speak your word, and then remute yourself. If you find yourself speaking over someone, just pause a moment and repeat your word. There is no hurry. There is time and space for everyone who wishes to share. And if you do not wish to share, you may offer your word in silence. When everyone who wishes has shared, we will continue our silence for just a few more moments, and I will break the silence for you. Since once again, Lord, I have neither bread, nor wine, nor altar, I will raise myself beyond these symbols, up to the pure majesty of the real itself. I, your priest, will make the whole world my altar, and on it will offer you all the labors and sufferings of the world. Over there on the horizon, the sun has just touched with light the outermost fringe of the eastern sky. Once again, beneath this moving sheet of fire, the living surface of the earth wakes and once again begins its fearful travail. I will place on my paten, O God, the harvest to be won by this renewal of labor. Into my chalice, I shall pour all the sap, which is to be pressed out this day from the earth's fruits. My chalice and my paten are the depths of a soul laid widely open to all the forces which in a moment will rise up from every corner of the earth and converge upon the spirit. grant me the remembrance and the mystic presence of all those whom the light is now awakening to a new day.
One by one, Lord, I see and I love all those whom you have given me to sustain and charm my life. One by one, I also number those who make up that other beloved family, which has gradually surrounded me. Its unity fashioned out of the most disparate elements, with affinities of the heart, of scientific research, and of thought. And one by one, more vaguely, it is true, yet all inclusively, I call before me the whole vast anonymous army of living humanity, those who surround me and support me, though I do not know them, those who come and those who go, above all those who in office, laboratory, and factory, through their vision of truth or despite their error, truly believe in the progress of earthly reality, and who today will again take up their impassioned pursuit of the light. This restless multitude, confused or orderly, the immensity of which terrifies us, this ocean of humanity whose slow, monotonous wave flows, trouble the hearts of even those whose faith is most firm. I is to his deep that I thus desire all the fibers of my being should respond. All the things in the world to which this day will bring increase, all those that will diminish, all those too that will die. All of them, Lord, I try to gather into my arms so as to hold them out to you in offering. This is the material of my sacrifice, the only material you desire.
Once upon a time, men took into your temple the first fruits of their harvest, the flower of their flocks. But the offering you really want, the offering you mysteriously need each day to appease your hunger, to slake your thirst, is nothing less than the growth of the world borne ever onward in the stream of universal becoming. Receive, O Lord, this all-embracing host, which your whole creation, moved by your magnetism, offers you at this dawn of a new day.
This bread, our toil, is of itself, I know, but an immense fragmentation. This wine, our pain, is no more, I know, than a draught that dissolves. Yet in the very depths of this formless mass you have implanted, and this I am sure of, for I sense it, a desire, irresistible, hallowing, which makes us cry out, believer and unbeliever alike, Lord, make us one.
Lord, make us one people. And now you are invited to speak your word.
Connection.
Solidarity.
Sacred.
Oneness.
Heartbeat of God.
Cosmic.
Conviction.
Omnipotence.
Heartbeat of God.
Inspired.
Incarnational.
Peace. Omnipotence.
Beauty.
Beloved
Blaze.
intimacy.
Presence.
Tranquility.
Creation. It was very good.
Aw.
Amen.
Did you share anything?
Me? People.
Oh. Yeah, I was just wondering whether you had unmuted yourself.
So Diane,
Yes.
I'll turn it back to you now.
Okay, and Julie will unmute, and she did.
Right. So thank you all. I'm looking, two things. I'm looking for prayer volunteers for next week. Carolyn and Richard, that'll make it easy.
Together.
And are you going to do it together? You're going to do opening and closing?
No,
Okay.
just opening.
Well, no.
Oh, just opening.
I thought you were doing opening and I was doing closing, then split the prayer in two.
I'm going to let you guys work it out, but you're
Okay, we'll work it
responsible
out.
for
Just one of them.
both.
Just one, but we'll do the first one.
Okay, opening. So anybody want to do closing? Sydney.
Yes, I'll
All
do
right.
closing next week.
I thought Sydney was doing it tonight.
Yeah, and so did Sydney.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think we had it. So if you're willing to, we keep putting you.
I can do it next week. Julie.
Well, do we want? Okay, thank
Ju-
you.
I
I
do the
think that
closing.
was such a beautiful meditation that it sort of covered the closing. And the spiritual practice is going to be sent out midweek. Is that right, Diane?
Yes,